There are three things in life that are certain: death, taxes, and Dragon Ball getting new DLC. Dragon Ball Kakarot has finally rolled out its second Daima DLC, and with that out of the way, attention naturally drifts to what's coming next. The next Sparking Zero DLC announcement still doesn't have a date, but if history is anything to go by, it's probably tied to the event next week, or at the very least right before it. Earlier I put up a community question just to get a pulse on how people were feeling, and the response was pretty consistent. Most of you guys agree on the same thing, that this base game is lacking content. Now within the Sparking Zero community, there are two very clear and very vocal sides. You got the players who want the PvP side of the game to keep evolving with buffs and nerfs, and then you get the equally loud, sometimes much louder crowd that's focused on the offline content. New modes, reasons to keep booting this game up even when you're not grinding those ranked matches. And appeasing both sides with the next DLC wave is going to be very difficult. Now right now, the only thing we can say with confidence is that more characters are coming. Beyond that, Bandai hasn't given us much to work with, which leaves us doing what Dragon Ball fans do best: speculate. So what characters could we be seeing? It's already a pretty large roster as is. Now when the game first launched, data miners found internal character IDs and leftover strings pointing towards veterans from Budokai Tenkaichi 3 that didn't make the final cut. Characters like Super 17, who had an entire arc built around him, and being absent still feels strange to me. Same goes for Nova Shenron, Pikkon, other henchmen from the movies like Zanya and Salsa. Then you got names like King Vegeta and the Great Apes, Piccolo Daimao as well. All that could easily be wrapped into like a nostalgia focused DLC pack and sold in one single wave. Then there's the original Dragon Ball era, which feels largely untouched. Watching the reactions to that idea has been interesting though, because the community is pretty split, especially on the American side. There's still some resistance there. A lot of fans just don't connect with that era the same way they do with Z, GT, or Super, it seems. I've been seeing a lot more people just want hype characters. I've seen Black Frieza in almost every single comment section as a request. Now I'm not sure if that character would ever come to this game, but we won't really know until the right situation has a definitive answer to the public. From a business standpoint, the reasoning becomes pretty clear when you look at the numbers. Roughly 90% of the game sales came from America and Europe. In those regions, Dragon Ball Z and Super dominate that conversation, while original Dragon Ball holds more cultural weight in Japan. And with Japan being on a much smaller side of the total slice of sales, it makes it harder to justify those characters as premium DLC, which is why I'd expect them to be bundled into something like a broader nostalgia pack. Now with Daima still being the hot new IP, it also wouldn't be surprising to see Bandai circle back and add characters that was skipped the first time around, like the Tamagami, who honestly probably should have been included in the first wave anyway. Now on a player perspective, it feels like we're brushing up against the same underlying issue. All of these keep looking back at the same conclusion, that this game needs more than just characters. What I've noticed in the community that they've been asking for, borderline yelling at this point, is more meaningful offline content. New story modes, more costumes, more substantial what-if scenarios, new maps, reasons to keep exploring the game beyond just loading into another versus match. I've seen a lot of people specifically asking for Daima story mode, ideally with some original what-if branches built into it. And that would be a pretty fun idea. We got Gohan Black. I could definitely see a Super Saiyan 4 mini Vegeta in there. Right now, even with that strong foundation that the game has, it still feels a little bare for how big its ambitions are. And characters alone, no matter how beloved, can only fill that space for so long. Personally, I really think a big missing piece is the environments. We're lacking locations that feel inseparable from the Dragon Ball games. Kame House, the Lookout, Muscle Tower, Capsule Corp. The absence becomes more noticeable the longer you spend with this game, and I've spent many hours on this game. Adding even a few of these in a DLC wave would go a long way towards making the world feel more complete. Now there's a lot of people who don't want new maps, but we've already seen how much that matters in this game. When the Daima pack introduced an entirely new realm, custom battles immediately started picking up again. People were experimenting, building scenarios, finding excuses to just jump back in. That alone shows how important spaces are to a player creativity. I also noticed a lot of people talking about the story mode, and I do agree it does need some more attention. As it stands, there's very little incentive to replay it. Once you've seen it, that's kind of it. Even small additions, alternative routes, different outcomes, weaving newly added characters into existing story nodes could dramatically improve replay value. They could go in there, add a Bojack story for Gohan, and then give you the costume for beating the little story mode. Bonus battles are another example. We got some early on and then they just stopped. You can definitely add some movie stuff in there with them and just give us some costumes for rewards. Now whatever the next DLC ends up being, I really hope it comes from a place of listening to the community, because if nothing meaningful gets added, nothing that changes how people engage with the game long term, I don't see the core player base sticking around forever. I'm sure it'll sell, it's Dragon Ball, the name alone always does, but we've seen this pattern before with the other games. When the feedback goes unanswered, the interest slowly fades, and people stop checking in with it. Sales can carry a launch, but it doesn't sustain a community. And what keeps a game alive is the feeling that it's growing alongside the people playing it. So I'm walking into this next DLC cycle very cautiously. Sparking Zero has the foundation to be something players stick with for years, just like Xenoverse, but whether that happens, it depends entirely on what comes next and whether those steps actually give players a reason to stay. I'm curious where you all land on this. What actually would bring you back long term? More characters, more story, more maps, a survival mode, bring back some of the sim battle 100s? Let me know your thoughts. I really want to hear what the community has to say. Leave a like if you liked the video, it definitely helps out the channel. If you're new here, consider subbing. I go over all things Dragon Ball. It's kind of my Yap channel. I have a entirely other series on the channel where I just go back and replay the Dragon Ball games I missed and break them down in a more retrospective type of way. I'm finally catching up with Dragon Ball Z Kakarot, and that series is about to finally end with that DLC out now. Anyway, I'll see y'all next time. Have yourself a damn good one. Peace.